Austin Hayes is exactly who the Cincinnati Reds hoped he'd be.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. His name is Jeff Carr. We're lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We love baseball. We've been podcasting about the Cincinnati Reds for a combined 14 years. We love talking Reds baseball with you. We love talking about the Cincinnati Reds team. On today's show, we are 14 days away from opening day, which means we will be talking about the Hit King, Pete Rose, a little bit later on today's show. Austin Hayes has the opportunity to be an impact player in 2025, and we'll be breaking down what to expect from him as the Reds' new left fielder. And Jeff, with Spencer Steer still recovering from that shoulder injury that was exacerbated by David Bell, we're going to discuss who will be backing up Hayes this coming season, at least as the season gets underway. And I think where we should start, Jeff, is with Austin Hayes, because he really looks to be bouncing back to not his 2024 form, but to his 2023 form, where he was an all-star and a difference maker in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, there are a couple of guys in spring training that really the biggest thing I wanted to see from them is, are they healthy? And Austin Hayes was at the top of that list, and it's very clear he is healthy. He's the guy that we talked about, like he didn't deal with just any old injury in 2024. He had a kidney infection, and a lot of the after effects of that messed with him in multiple different ways. The kind of thing that you're really not going to see a guy bounce back from the very same year that he dealt with it. But now it's clear that he's healthy. He's ready to go. He's been hitting a lot of cleanup, Steve, and I'm wondering about that a little bit, at least early on in the season, as to if that may be his spot in the lineup. But I think it's clear he is going to be the everyday left fielder for the Reds.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't know if I'm ready to pencil him in the 4 spot in the lineup. You know, career high in 2021 of 22 home runs. I guess that's fine. You say playing at Great American pushes that out to 25 or a little better. But I still think there's other guys in this lineup that will hit for more power, that would be more appropriate there. But I'm with you. That's the neighborhood, right? 3-hitter, 4-hitter, 5-hitter. I'm not sure he would drop as low as 6, but he's definitely a talent in this lineup. You go back to his all-star season in 2023, Jeff. That season, he had a slash line of 275, 325, 444. He hit for 16 home runs, 67 RBIs, but again, was an all-star for the Orioles. That's exactly the kind of production the Reds need out of him. He doesn't have to go out there and hit 30 home runs, although we'll take it. I'm not saying don't do it, Austin. If you're listening and you want to hit 30 bombs, go ahead. Jack them out of there. It's cool. But the Reds don't need him to be that power hitting guy. We talked about this yesterday. The Reds think CES is going to be that power hitting guy. But if you get 20 home runs from Austin Hayes and a slash line that sits around 275, 325, let's say 450, I can live with that. That was good for an OPS plus of 114, 14% better than league average. It translated to a WAR of 2.5. If Austin Hayes could be a 3 WAR guy, a 120 OPS plus guy, the Reds win this deal.
Oh yeah, and I mean let's call it what it is. We wanted the Reds to go spend a bunch of money on an outfielder, and this is what they came back with. But honestly, I think they really lucked out. It was a situation where, coming off of the kidney infection and everything that he dealt with last year, the market for Austin Hayes was super low, and so he was looking to bounce back. And I do believe, I think there's an option. I think it's like a mutual option or something like that for next year, but essentially just for one season. And we'll see if he can do that, you know, Nick Castellanos thing from 2021 or even the Tommy Pham thing before the Reds traded Tommy Pham. He was hitting pretty well in a Reds uniform. But I think that Austin Hayes is going to be
especially if you were a commissioner.
Yeah, he's going to be a very solid addition to this lineup. But even more than that, he brings something that the Reds have not had in their outfield in a long time. And I've mentioned this before, but I thought it'd be worth bringing back up. He got an arm. And he showed it off a couple of times in spring training. I believe it was against the Braves, or was it the Dodgers? Anyway, there was a play where a guy tried to stretch a single into a double, and the ball bounced perfectly off the wall. Hayes played it perfectly off the wall, turned around, fired to second, got the guy out. the Reds have a guy now that we can say, you know what? Opposing runners should take note of him. Because as much as we love TJ Friedel, they weren't doing that with him. As much as we love Jake Fraley, I think he's got a solid arm, but his accuracy isn't always the best. And so opposing runners aren't worried about him. They're not worried about Stuart Fairchild. They're not worried about Will Benson. They have to account for Austin Hayes and the fact that he can gun them down second, third, and even in some cases home plate, especially if you talk about him connected with Elly De La Cruz on a cutoff.
Well, I was just going to say one of the interesting things will be reteaching Elly De La Cruz that he doesn't now have to cut every single throw from left
You don't have
field.
to run halfway out.
There are times he can let the ball go through because Austin Hayes can get the ball where it needs to go, whereas that was not the case last season. Elly needed to cut that puppy and fire it in there at 100 miles an hour. Now the Reds can do a little bit more of a traditional defensive lineup with traditional cuts. I think they got into some bad habits last year of relying on Elly to run out almost all the way to the left field position to cut the baseball. This will fall under what Terry Francona has told us all along, that they're going to play the game the right way. They're going to play the game the way it should be played, and they're going to be better defensively. Terry Francona has said all those things. And Austin Hayes helps fulfill that mission, right? He's going to be better in the outfield. He's going to cover more ground, I think, than Spencer Steer. And look, I have not been one to bag on Spencer Steer. And I know that you have been team, hashtag Jeff hates Spencer in the outfield. And I get it. He's not a true outfielder. He was learning on the fly. He was trying to do a job. He's an infielder. I get why you're the president of the Bash on Spencer Club when it comes to his defensive ability. But I do know that this now is a tremendous defensive upgrade in left. And once Spencer Steer's shoulder is helpful, let you better utilize him in other places to give, Gavin Lux a day off at second base, to give CES a day off at first base. He can give, basically, Spencer Steer can give everybody on the infield a day off and play full time. And I love that idea. And I love that by signing Austin Hayes, it created just even that much more flexibility to do something like that with the super utility role, where you've got a player that could potentially become an all-star playing super utility in Spencer Steer if he bounces like we think he's going. So Austin Hayes was the key to that. He wasn't the 40 homer bopper that we wanted. He wasn't the Santander Teoscar Hernandez press conference signing we wanted the Reds to have. However, I'm with you. The kidney infection was a fluke. There were times last year his friends reported that he had altered mental status based on this kidney infection, which screams Eurosepsis to me. This dude was sick and fighting a battle, and that's all resolved now. He's going to be the 2023 guy. I have no doubt about it, Jeff. I'm excited to see him play and see what he can contribute to this Reds team. The more we're doing these position breakdowns, Jeff, the more excited I'm getting. I'm ready to get on an airplane right now and get to Cincinnati. I'm ready for the games to start. I can't wait to see this new team, this new attitude, this new outlook that Terry Francona is fueling. And it starts with guys like Austin Hayes having rebound years.
2 weeks away from opening day. And real quickly, too, before we get out of this segment, there was one thought that I had. And with the 1-year deal for Austin Hayes, I kind of wonder a little bit. And I think I'm in the camp that if he has a good year, the Reds should look to see if they could sign him for another season. They do have him for a mutual option. Now it's a mutual option for $12 million. They got him for $4 million this year, a buyout of $1 million. So essentially they're guaranteeing him $5 million total. But they could do a mutual option for $12 million, big raise next season. I'm of the mindset that there should be interest in that if he has a good year, just because of how weak the outfield group is. Am I wrong?
No, because we're still not that far removed from, it's fan appreciation night. You can play left field for the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah.
Very far away from that. So
No,
they got to keep people around here. And if he's 2020, listen, if he puts up those 2023 numbers again, let's say a 2.5 to 3 WAR, let's say a 115 to 120 OPS plus. Yeah. And if he says, yeah, I'll pick up that option, the Reds should pick up that option because you got to do a little math here, but it's an option for $12 million. They're paying him $4 this year, right? That equals $16 million. And they would have got 2023 Austin Hayes for 2 years at $8. That's still a deal. If you break it down and divide it by time played, by exercising the option. I would have been fine if we were guaranteed 2023 Austin Hayes at $8 million. So that's kind of how that would work out. If he plays well, sure, and he wants to pick up that option, keep him here. Have a little continuity. I'm all for it.
You got to go back to 2021 to see those types of wins above replacement numbers by a Reds corner outfielder. Both Jesse Winker and Nick Castellanos were over 3 wins above replacement that season. But and then I think TJ Friedel had a nice season in 2023. But still, like, the Reds outfield has been very weak over the last long time. So yes, I'm with you. I think that's what the Reds should be looking to do if he has a good season. But I know this, Steve. He can't play 162 games. I mean, he could, but there's going to be some times where he gets a day off. There's going to be some times where maybe he DHs. Somebody else has to play left field. And I think that we're looking at Blake Dunn and Jacob Hurtubise as that. And I think I'm going to tell you why I think it's Blake Dunn over Jake Hurtubise coming up next. Are you hungry yet? I bet you will be after I talk about Wonderful Pistachios, because this is the best snack to have. It's got all the salty goodness. It's got the wonderful flavor. If you're talking about the chili roasted, they've also got some other great flavors too, if you're not into a little bit of spice like this. But it's going to fill that need when you're thinking about reaching for some sort of chips or some sort of pretzels. Wonderful Pistachios is there for you, and it's got all the protein that you're looking for. We're all looking for a healthier snack, and Wonderful Pistachios is that healthy snack. I've been reaching for it all throughout spring training, and it has not let me down yet. You got to check out Wonderful Pistachios. So get cracking, get snacking, and head on over to wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. They're everywhere. Go find them today. In fact, I'm getting a little bit low on mine. But I'm going to go have me a pistachio. Thanks as always for making us your first listen every single day, and shout out to our everydayers out there. If you're not an everydayer, you can become one by hitting that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting app. We encourage you to do so. Lots more content coming for you all year long. But Steve, as we look at left field, as we look at the outfield as a whole, really, there's going to be an opportunity for one roster spot, because I maintain, and again, it hasn't been reported, but I maintain that the Reds will begin the season with Spencer Steer on the IL. With that being said, there's going to be a spot open on the bench, and I think that they're going to give that spot to an outfielder because of the presence of Gavin Lux. Now, Gavin Lux they've been playing him in the outfield a little bit in spring training. He has some experience in the outfield, so he can, stretch out there if you need him to. But I think overall, they're going to want another outfielder on the bench, and I think for my money, they're going to turn to Blake Dunn. He has had a solid spring, but I don't think that that's all they're looking at. They're looking at what he provided for them in AAA last year. They're looking at what he provided for them in a tiny, tiny sample size in the major leagues last year. It's clear he is fast. It's clear he has a good glove, and he has a solid arm, and he can play all 3 outfield spots without question. So for me, that's where they're going to turn for that final bench spot, especially for a guy that I don't think they need to worry about giving him regular playing time.
This is an interesting question, because Blake Dunn, we saw him in the majors last year, and it was just a blink, a bat of an eye. 19 games total, Jeff. In those 19 games, 154, 241, 308. None of that means anything. He's not a 49 OPS plus guy. He's not a negative 0.2 WAR guy. He never really got an opportunity to get going. You look at Jacob Hurtubise, few more games, in fact, 10 more games. He got into 29 games, the same negative 0.1 in WAR, OPS plus right around the same at 50. Neither one of these guys got a real shot. They were emergency fill-ins, come play, sit on the bench a bunch, get in at bat, just take up a spot because we don't have anybody else. So if you're going with either one of these guys, you're basing it on what their trends have told you, what the minor league coaching staff has told you, and what the eye test this spring has told you. That's what you're getting with either of these guys. It's a real gamble. We just don't know. But this is going to be a guy that gets some early playing time just out of necessity, because I think you're right. Spencer Steer starts the season on the IL unless he starts playing defensively in games today. If that doesn't happen, we're not going to see him 14 days from now on opening day. I wonder, and I hope that this is not the case, I wonder if they look at both of these guys and they look at their production and they look at all the things they don't know, and then they look over at Will Benson and say, well, we know you can play defense, and we know this is how you hit also.
Mhm.
We're going to go ahead and bring you with us to Cincinnati. And man, you better learn how to hit a baseball real fast. I wonder if that's what they're going to do. I agree with you that it should be one of these two guys, but I think they're going to go with Will Benson. And I saved this on purpose to catch you off guard with it. I
Mhm.
think they're going to go with the devil they know.
It's an interesting point because you could say, well, we're doing the platoon thing, right? Like I don't think they're going to platoon Will Benson with Austin Hayes, but they look at the roster and they say we got, Hayes and we have right field, or, we have Fairchild.
We'll talk about
Like,
we'll talk about Freychild in the
Yeah.
other side, right? That's your true
Right.
platoon. That's over there in
Well-
right field. We'll get to that later this week.
Right, but looking at the entire outfield, they say, well, we got a couple of right-handed bats. TJ Friedel is center field, period. Don't see him playing anywhere else. We didn't get somebody to play to force him to play anywhere else. So that's his spot. So he's not moving around. So the only other guy that we have in the outfield that's left-handed is Jake Fraley. So there is a good argument here from that perspective. And I wonder a little bit about that because we've also heard reports. The swing is different. The batting stance is different. He's made changes.
The swing and the batting stance were different last year too, and we saw
didn't help. Yeah,
we saw how
Yeah.
that worked out there, Jeffy.
made things really
Will
bad.
Benson, Will Benson. I want to just remind everybody: 128 games. That translated to 388 Major League Baseball plate appearances in 2024, for a slash line of 187, 274, 375. An OPS plus of 76 and a WAR of negative 1.4.
And I will say too, like the trends, and I'm not talking about batting average and all that stuff, but the spring training game trends of where guys play, nobody has played more left field than Jacob Hurtubise. So that could be a counterpoint as to Hurtubise over Blake Dunn. But I really want Terry Francona to consider lots of things here because, yes, Will Benson is left-handed. Outside of that, it's really hard to make an argument as to why he should be on the roster over Blake Dunn or Jacob Hurtubise.
I actually would really like for them to pick one of Dunn or Hurtubise and
We don't
give them a real look.
Yeah.
They need to figure out who they've got that's reliably next. And
Yes.
I don't know the answer to that right now. And that's
I
why
don't
we're
either.
struggling. That's why we're struggling to figure this out, because there will be points and times in 2025 where they're going to need the who's next guy to come up and fill in a little bit. And I would rather figure that out in the first 2 weeks of the season, not in the middle of a pennant race in August. So
Yeah.
I would much rather it be one of these two dudes. I want them. Oh man. And if they do this, I think it would be more a Nick Krall decision than a Terry Francona decision. But I just don't want them to go with, we know this guy. We know what we've got with Will Benson. I don't want them to do that. I want to know who's next.
It's funny because we're kind of setting up a point that we're really going to discuss more in depth on tomorrow's podcast whenever we look at TJ Friedel in center field and just the outfield in general. But I don't know if you got ESPN the magazine back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember those issues where they had who's next on the cover?
Yep.
Things like that. Well, if the question was asked, who's next in the Reds outfield, it would be that meme from, or the GIF from Pulp Fiction, whenever John Travolta is in the room just going, where?
Yeah.
Who? Where? No, we don't know who's next.
We don't know who's next. No.
Like, and there's people that are like, well, Hector Rodriguez, Yvonne Johnson, and that they moved Carlos Jorge to the outfield. None of those guys are close. I think either one of the three names that I just mentioned, you have to squint really hard to see them making it to the major leagues this year. And I'm talking like September. So maybe they get their first cup of coffee in 2026, but you're not counting on them for 2026. So you need to know who's next and the closest guys. And this is as much a referendum on what the Reds have done in the outfield as it is a just stone cold fact of the roster. Is you need to figure out what Blake Dunn and Jacob Hurtubise have to offer you, because we've seen what Will Benson has to offer us, and it wasn't too good last year.
Yeah, I agree, Jeff. It's if it let's exclude Will Benson. Let's just say they're going to get this right, and I don't believe that, but let's say they're going to get this right. And you're I think you said it earlier, but I want to just be sure. You're picking Hurtubise or you're picking Dunn if you're picking.
Well, I think I'm like 51% in on Dunn, 49% on Hurtubise.
Okay, so you're really indifferent then, is what I'm hearing. It doesn't matter to you.
I really wanted to say that I'm strong on Blake Dunn, but the more that we talk about it, the more I'm kind of like, yeah, 6 1, half dozen the other.
So for all the reasons you said about Will Benson, I'm going to go with Hurtubise because he bats left-handed. So
that's fair.
For all of the reasons that you said, Will Benson kind of makes sense from a platoon-ish day off standpoint. I think you go with Hurtubise and figure out if he's got it or not. If he's your guy.
I'm going to wince and say he's had a good spring.
Oh boy, that 500 spring training batting average, buddy. You know that you can take that to the bank. You can reliably know that a guy that hits 500 in Goodyear against pitchers that are going to play in the ACL tells you everything you need to know about what's happening. Stop it.
We need to get out of this segment.
Get out of this segment fast. One thing I know for sure, Jeff, there's a lot more questions than there are answers when it comes to who plays after Austin Hays. We're not going to get the answers to that today, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the Reds handle this. But here's what I do know, Jeff. They've only got 14 days to figure it out, because 14 days from today, you and I are going to be at Great American Ballpark watching opening day baseball, baby. And of course, being 14 days away, we're going to talk about the hit king, Peter Edward Rose, coming up next. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, if you use the promo code SH5, you're going to get 5% off your first order. That's at supplyhouse.com. If you can't watch us here on YouTube, guess what? You can take us on the road. We are on pretty much every single audio podcasting platform there is out there. If you find one that we're not on, let us know, because I'm not sure there is one at this point. You can take us in the car. You can take us to the gym. You can take us on the road with you so that you never miss an episode of Talking Reds Baseball. We love talking Reds baseball with you. Tell your friends. All right, Jeff, let's get into this. 14 days to opening day. Peter Edward Rose. There is no argument. There is no conversation here. He is the one. He is the guy. The comment section at times this year has been no mention of Pete Rose and what's going on. Well, here it is, folks. We're doing it. We're doing it today. We saved it for when it was time. It's time today, 14 days. Peter Edward Rose is under consideration for reinstatement from the ineligible list by Major League Baseball. Rob Manfred is undecided, but considering it. Should he be removed from that list, the exclusionary clause keeping him out of baseball's Hall of Fame now goes away. He can be considered. First time eligibility, does he appear on the ballot 5 times? We don't know. I think the Rose family should tell the Baseball Hall of Fame and Rob Manfred to pound sand. They should absolutely tell them to just kick rocks. They couldn't do this when Pete was alive. They shouldn't do it after he's dead, because this one thing meant more to Pete Rose than anything else in the world. And we're going to get into why he deserves to be there. But if I was the Rose family, I would tell them to just see you later.
I mean, we all saw this coming, right? Like we all knew that this was going to happen. The moment that Pete passed away, baseball would reinstate him. He would likely get elected into the Hall of Fame, because I think he goes through the Classics committee.
He's never been on the ballot. As far as I'm concerned, he's eligible.
Or does he get put on the ballot?
He's eligible to be voted on by the writers. As far as I'm concerned, he's never appeared.
Which, that's interesting, because do you think, I don't know, like I kind of think if it were the opposite, if he were going through the Classics era committee, he would have a better shot. Like, I almost wonder if the writers will deem this too hot to handle and they just don't vote him in.
Well, they clearly don't know what they're doing in regards to Hall of Fame selection, so who knows?
It's true, but I wonder a little bit about this whole process, and of course, there's the whole thing about the president pardoning him for the whole tax evasion, whatever. Like, I think that
Which is really neither here nor there. That doesn't matter. For the Hall of
It
Fame.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
It's just, yeah, he's just doing a thing.
Let's talk about his bona fides for just a minute, Jeff. 24 years, Major League Baseball experience, 79.5 career WAR, leads all of baseball in games played at 3,562, leads all of baseball in plate appearances is 15,890 with 14,053 at bats. Here's the one that matters: 4,256 hits as a Major League Baseball player. Career slash line, in case you were wondering, Jeff, 303, 375, 409, was an all-star at 5 positions during the course of his Major League career, was the MVP in 1973. There's no question that if he's deemed eligible for the Hall of Fame, they should be falling all over themselves to put him in. I just hate that it was so petty and handled so poorly that the same year that he dies. Oh yeah. Now let's talk about getting him in. Get out of here with that. It's terrible.
They knew this is what they were going to do all along. I wonder a little bit, like, do you think, because we always talk about the hit record, right? Everybody always talks about the hit record and how it'll never be broken. I think it's more likely that his other records of the games and the at-bats and the plate appearances and all that stuff will never be broken, because I don't see anybody playing 24 years.
No one will ever get 4,000 big league hits again. Not unless there's dramatic rules changes that neutralizes the pitchers. There's no way, under the current way baseball is being played, with all these maximum effort guys throwing breaking pitches that break 6 feet across the zone. There's no way a guy is going to stick around for 24, 25 years and amass 4,000 plus hits. I can't see a scenario where that ever happens.
And then even if that happens, then we could talk about asterisks and all that good stuff, because it's just like, well, yeah, they bent the rules to change that. I think it's also interesting too, though, Steve, because and maybe I'm off base with this a little bit, but I kind of believe the day that they let in Pete Rose, they've got to start thinking about like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, guys like that, because what they're going to do is when they let in Pete Rose, they are going to have to detail the man as well. And I think that is a way of letting in people from the steroid era, where it's just like, look, here's the deal. This is what he did. And there was a lot of suspicion around him using steroids. So to present the whole thing, because I don't think that Pete Rose ever, put his team in detriment because of his gambling thing. And I don't think that steroids were the only reason that guys were good, because if that's the case, then Ken Caminiti would be in the Hall of Fame. But you got guys like Barry Bonds, and I even saw recently, like, I don't think Mo Vaughn is a Hall of Famer, but Mo Vaughn admitted to later on in his career taking steroids and things like that. It's just what they did during that period of time.
It's silly to me to have a Hall of Fame that recognizes the greatest numbers through the history of baseball, and having the guy that has the most hits ever not be in there. I don't care what he did off the field.
Right.
Didn't help him get 4,256 hits. Much like Barry Bonds. Now, did it help him recover faster or be healthy or whatever?
Right.
But Barry Bonds, listen, you look at what he did during that 4 or 5 year period, and it's never going to be replicated. And I don't care how much steroids you take. It doesn't help you put a round bat on a round ball that way. Like it just doesn't. So, did it help him hit him farther? Probably. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is they happened. And you as a Hall can't just look the other way. I think it's silly that the Hall has become what it has become. To me, it has lost all of its credibility. It has lost all of its shine and luster. It's a joke. It's a joke as long as they continue to let the baseball writers who use it as an opportunity to get their 10 seconds of fame on social media pick the guys that go in. As long as that's still going on, the Hall of Fame is a joke. And I don't care. Wholesale changes need to be made in the process for putting players in baseball's Hall of Fame.
Before we get out of here, I wanted to ask you this one thing, because I don't think you have the the page pulled up to cheat on this one, but who was the person to wear the number 14 before Pete Rose?
Oh, before. Shoot. I don't know before. I know after.
Right before.
I know after
Well,
was Pete
after
Rose
was
Jr.
his son, the only guy that was allowed to. Yes. Right before, Don Zimmer was the last guy to wear number
Really?
14 before
Popeye?
someone named Pete Rose.
They let
Yep.
Popeye wear number 14? All right.
1962. And that is where we will end today's show. Thank you so much for checking out today's Lockdown Reds podcast. We will be with you every single day up until opening day and then all the way through the season as well, getting you set for what should be a playoff run here in 2025 by your Cincinnati Reds. So excited to be doing that. Make sure you become an everydayer by hitting that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcasting app, because Steve and I will be all over this. Coming up on tomorrow's show, by the way, talking about TJ Friedel in center field. Boy, if he stays healthy, this could be a very, very good team with him leading off. And we're going to tell you a lot about that and why the Reds have not drafted successfully an outfielder since 2012. So we're going to have a lot of fun. Tomorrow's podcast, make sure you join us. Until then, you know that we will be Locked On Reds every single day.
I bet you didn't think you were going to get a Popeye Don Zimmer reference today.
That's why I thought I'd end the show with it. You got to love it. 1962. I think we all remember that one.